record. I'm going to share my screen again, and we are going to have some fun. Okay, so welcome everybody. This is the third in a series that I'm doing in April. A mentor circle meant to be for small business leaders and others who have interest in leadership, layoffs, and love, and anything that you need right now. I'm finding that we get different people depending on the topic that have signed up. And as you know, I think that everyone's a leader. So we can all lead in different ways. And today our topic is work from home, productivity and trust. We are going to have an opportunity for some questions. We have a great guest today. I started this series really because I think that so many people are looking for support and connection, and particularly when many people have found themselves working from home completely in a chaotic way. And so how do we navigate this time together? If you don't know me, I'm Helen Patterson. I'm a workplace expert, and I'm the founder of Life Works Well. And I help scaling organizations create high performance and health-centered cultures that drive revenue growth. It's a pretty tough time to do that, but we will continue to support each other. I'm also the author of 2 HR publications, Best Practice Terminations, and Employment Policies That Work. So I have a passion for mentoring, and this is why one of the reasons I brought together people to share their experiences in a way through mentorship, coaching, and just helping each other. So I thought this quote was apropos for our topic today. Really, how do we get things going where we don't feel overwhelmed, that we're actually feeling like we're getting things accomplished? In the best of times, that's tough. Like, how do we do that now in this unusual situation? So I'm really excited today to have Clare Kumar on. Welcome, Clare. Clare and I met several years ago. We were actually neighbors, but we literally ran into each other because we both were runners. I don't know if you're still running, Clare. I've had to kind of slow down a little bit. But we would meet each other on the street and got chatting, and we were both so passionate about work-life integration and how to manage it as moms, as people that have to take care of others in any situation. And she started a couple businesses which are all about organizing. She's a speaker. She's so much more. She's been featured in, I can't even, the list is too long, but Huffington Post. One day I'm going to get on that Marilyn Dennis show like you did. I love your features on that. And she's been interviewed by many media. So I'm so excited to have you here and share your experiences with us. So I think I have to stop share and then you can take over. And as I mentioned, just a couple housekeeping things. If you want to ask a question, put it in the comment. Just please, this is meant to be as interactive as possible, and we'll bring you out. And with that said, I'm going to just stop my share and you can take over from there.
Awesome. So just so you know, I won't be able to see the chat when I'm presenting. So if you see a question come up, Helen, and you think it's like we should address this right now, just by all means interrupt and cue me. Okay?
Okay, great.
Okay. So I'm just getting my slide up here. Okay, you can all see that. Work from home better. And I'm really excited to talk about this. Hi, Lee. Nice to see you. I'm really excited to talk about this because I think a fundamental piece of really successful work-life integration for a lot of us, especially those who are caring for other people and dividing our day between a lot of different responsibilities, is being able to successfully work from home. And now we've been all thrust into this opportunity. It's been this incredible leveler. So no matter who you are, you're forced to be generally experiencing some work from home if you have an office type job. So what an opportunity if we can get this right. And I was just speaking to one of the companies I work with yesterday, and I watched the evolution in leadership thinking spurred by their employees who were like, you know what, I don't have a 3-hour commute, and I think I'm living more healthfully and better. And I want to continue this on the other side, and leadership responding in a really positive, let's explore and redefine what we want to go back to. So I look at this as, yes, it's a really tough time right now, but there is this, you cannot deny that we're experiencing humanity differently. And so I'm kind of excited about that. But before jumping into a few slides that I've prepared to talk to you about today, I do want to touch on the running comment, Helen. I don't run, or if I do, it's because there's a good tune on and it lasts for 3 to 8 minutes and then that's it. But what I'm trying to do is, because I miss my daily swim, which was part of my morning ritual, I'm actually, and tell me if you think this is weird, I'm trying to incorporate swimming and walking. So I look like a complete weirdo out there, but I'm thinking if we're walking, that's great lower body, but I can never get my cardio up. So I'm integrating swimming arms. Like, I kid you not, I'm walking around doing this and some breaststroke and whatever. And I think it should be a thing. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think that's a great idea.
Right? I'm like, and some guy just ran by me on the trail and I'm like, I missed my pool. And he burst out laughing. So I honestly think it's a thing. I don't know why it's like, I hashtag swim walk. There's 100 posts on it, but none of them are about what I was talking about. So I
Oh,
don't
well,
know
I'm
what
going to
you're
have
thinking.
to try that. We actually did open our pool, by the way, just so we could look at it. It's like freezing cold. And Tim and my son have a a ritual every year of jumping in before the heat's on, and it's really funny. I tape it. It's really
Okay. Well, when you have your heat on, call me. Let
okay.
me know.
Yeah, let's hope. Now, I am going to monitor the questions from time to time, and as I said, feel free. But you know, I know that you have such a wealth of knowledge, so I'm actually can't wait because I have been having a little bit of challenge navigating this as well.
Yeah, so let me dive into a little bit of content that I prepared, and I'm sure we'll have lots of time for riveting, Q&A discussion, which we can all contribute to. So you've heard this, no doubt, as enlightened HR leaders and business leaders. You've heard this concept of bringing your whole self to work, and we're starting. I don't know you, Helen and Lee, what you're seeing, and Deborah and Nicole. I sense that people were starting to really embrace this concept of, Brene Brown talking about being vulnerable and authentic and showing up as whole humans to work. That's a really exciting thing. Well, that's all kind of dashed, right? We're not bringing our whole selves to work now. In fact, work just landed in your living room. And so there is wonderfully no escape from everybody seeing as the full humans that we are. We can't deny that we're moms and wives and sisters and pet care providers. We're more robust people than perhaps the portrayal of our work personas. And so with that, you can't avoid it. You've got to acknowledge all of this as the doorbell rings, as your teenager crosses behind you to get something from the fridge, as the cat jumps on your computer. I think there's kind of a beauty in this. And the strong leaders and the people who are going to come out of this, the best, are the ones who are able to open and embrace this, make room for it, and then start moving respectfully and interacting respectfully through that. So I just wanted to just open with that. I think there's a wonderful opportunity here. And then, so it's interesting. I was putting together, before this really took off, and you can see March 19th is sort of around the time we locked down here in Canada, behind Europe and Asia, obviously, and a bit before the US, I think. This was a stock photo. If I look at working from home mom, I mean, when you look at that picture, what does it make you think of? Is like you got a baby perched on one hand and you're typing with one hand, left hand. Maybe she's left-handed, kudos, but how effective could that be? The only realistic thing in this picture I've kind of blocked out by the stock photo. Behind that, the books are a mess on that shelf. They're a complete and total mess. So that was the view of work from home and stock photography on March 19th. I went back and did a search last week. That's what I found when it was work from home. So what I love is now we've got a different appreciation and slice and perspective of what it's actually like trying to work from home. And I want to just say that if you can figure out working from home now, you can nail it anytime. This is as hard as it's going to get. We've got open concept homes, which bring all the challenges of open concept offices to those sanctuaries that we thought we could work in at home. And we've got increasing challenges, not only in the environment, but also in this construct of wrapping our heads around what is going on. It's like, we hear don't sweat the small stuff. Well, this ain't small stuff. And so we're all in a milieu of big questions that are looking for big answers. Some we have and a lot we don't. And so with that, what I think is paramount is that we all have to incubate extreme self-compassion, and then from there, extend that out to compassion for everyone we're encountering. And the only way we can sustain that is if we really take care of ourselves. So I just wanted to open with those thoughts. As anybody knows who's worked with kids or has someone else to take care of, to be able to show up for work, you can't give your undivided attention to your work if there are big questions about what I call your home team. And so and part of your home team is you. So the number one place to start is taking care of your home team, like I said, of which you're a part. And so that is the foundation. I've been giving workshops to corporations, and I have 2 levels of workshops, and one is for individuals and the second is a leadership conversation. And so I'm breaking this down into 2 levels as well, starting with the home team concept, because no matter whether you're a leader or an individual contributor, that's really the place to start. And then we can layer on what to think of as a leader and manager, because there are some other considerations, which I'll get to in the second half. So when we're looking at our home team, I want you to think of the 4 C's, if you will. If there's a big question on how do I juggle all of these priorities and how do I fit everything in? And before getting to the very 4th point, which is co-creating a structure and setting up a schedule, you've probably all heard, we need a schedule. We need to latch onto a schedule. And I think on Ontario, where I live, the first couple of weeks it hit when March break happened. And so everybody was sort of ready for vacation mode, took a pause, caught their breath. And then after about 2 weeks, I saw people sort of craving for some kind of regularity and schedule and structure. And the point about that is having some structure gives you a foundation from which to operate. And it gives you something you can count on. And in a time of real mega uncertainty, we need a few things we can count on. So structure in your environment, structure in your schedule can be good. But if you prematurely go and try and create a rigid structure without going through the first 3, you could feel that constriction that overly being scheduled or having a structure that doesn't suit you fixed. So I want to back up and start first of all by asking you to honestly assess the capabilities of everyone on your home team, including you. What are you able to do? What are you able to take on? And if you're thinking about children, if they're in their home, it's very much driven by age, maturity, interest, and so on, and what they've learned already. What can each individual do to contribute to that home team? Because now we have to have a team mentality. I want you to have a home team advantage, if you will. So we're all sort of in this together, and I want everybody to be contributing. There's been a lot of talk over the years of parents doing things because it's faster. And so the kids they're not learning chores. I don't know about you, but my kids would always be telling me, my friends don't have to do the dishes. My friends don't have to clean up after the dog. My friends don't have to tidy this and that. And it's like, but that's how it's going to work here, because I want you to grow. I want to keep you safe. 2 things I've always told my kids: I need to keep you safe, and I need to help you grow into the best people you can be. And the best people you are going to be are really capable people who can take care of themselves and a lot of what they need to around them. And so this opportunity, if you can look at this opportunity, although there's patience required in the short-term vein for long-term gain, investing in building the capability of your team so that they can take more on, and you can really, as a team, look at what you can do. And that's from a 2-year-old putting their clothes in the laundry hamper. It's putting things away. It's dusting. It's really figuring out what people can do in terms of the capability, in terms of working independently as a middle school student? How can we cultivate some independence and focus for a period of time so that then you can be able to do something while that child is engaged? That sort of thing. So understanding capability and looking at it very objectively is a very useful exercise. And I'm just adding a piece actually to an online program I've created that goes much deeper in this as a tool to capture this per person. Capability first, and then capacity second. So capability is what can you do? And capacity is how much can you do? Because, just saying someone can focus in independent work, that's great, but for how long? And so understanding capacity, which is affected by energy levels and emotional state. So understanding those two pieces and then sort of looking at, well, okay, what can you take on today? And I don't know about you, but I have found quite a roller coaster over the last few weeks, in which sometimes I'm on and focused. And honestly, it's when I'm in work like this and opportunities to connect with people and be of service that I'm able to really focus and deliver. And other times where I've been flat out, to your question, Deborah, sort of disengaged, unmotivated, sort of very flat. It's like there's an overwhelm going on of the senses, and I want everyone to be aware in the construct of what we're going through. That's not abnormal, and we don't know when it's going to hit. So, for example, and here's the other thing about the situation that we're in now, which is going to be tougher over the next little while as more people that we're close to, we end up suffering loss because of the COVID-19 situation, but also because of other life events that happen. And I lost someone very dear to me last week. Now, I just got booked this morning for CHCH TV in Hamilton next Tuesday. And one of my things that I looked forward to every time I did that show was dropping in on this neighbor, because we used to live just like you and I did, Helen, lived very close to each other. So did we. And she's like an aunt to me. She's like my mom's age. I've known her since I was 4 years old. And she passed last week, and I just got booked for Hamilton next week. And it just hit me, I'm not going to be able to go and see her next week. So it's these micro losses, mega losses, if you will, that are going to pop up for you and potentially derail you for a moment. So all your skills around resiliency and recentering are going to be something you can count on. But to assess what's happening for your grade 12 student who's really in anguish that there's no prom, or your grade 6 student whose birthday is coming up and they really wanted to get together with their friends for their 12th or 13th birthday. And so these are all very real, poignant moments in time for people, and they can come in any time. So understanding what the capacity is of every member on your home team also goes into what can we expect at the end of the day. And then looking at commitments, and it's so varied out there. I mean, I have friends in Southern California with 3 kids, and they're overwhelmed in making spreadsheets to coordinate all of the schooling deliverables that their kids have. And then there are people who are just like, you know what, I'm just letting my kids learn, and I've just let go of this school year. I'm giving us a pass. There's such a variety of commitments that are out there. You could be trying to run your business and trying to create commitments to pull you forward. You could have standing meetings from a business that's just actually not slowed down at all. It's running full tilt and expecting even more out of you with all of this going on. So understanding what the commitments are that each person on your home team has, and then looking at capability and capacity and understanding what's still valid and reasonable to take on given where we are, then you can look at co-creating a structure together as a family. So that was a whole long mouthful. I'd love to pause here actually, and I'll stop sharing for a second and just see if anybody has any questions about the whole mouthful of the 5 C's. And I see we've got somebody else joined too, so welcome, Elizabeth.
Yeah, great. I was just about to say that this is a great place to stop, because one of the things I thought, actually, we should add that C of the chores, the other C of chores, because, often, and, for some people, they are having their university aged children come home who may not have jobs anymore. As an example, Katie, who applied to research assistant positions in hospitals, of course, because
And
she's in
Katie's your
science.
daughter?
Yeah, science and health background. And
Yep.
yeah, you don't remember Katie, she's now 20. But she's, so she, even the lifeguarding with City of Toronto, everything's on hold. That was her backup if she didn't get a job. So now she was trying to finish, exams. Right now you can't hear it, but my hubby's upstairs on the Peloton and it's very noisy. And it's like, okay, I need quiet right now. But I think that I love what you said about, it's a perfect time to gain some understanding of what it's like to work from home in a very unusual time, because I've worked from home a lot and it's usually been quiet and I have everything to myself. And now I'm like, my office is being taken over. Now I'm at the dining room table. I posted a picture of it. That's why I said, help Claire, because it's some math. Like I have papers everywhere. It's like, I need help. But I think that, there's also people that don't have, they're alone. And I don't know if you can touch on that too a little bit. And then maybe we'll open it up for other questions.
Yeah, sure. So a couple of things I want to touch on. One, I want to just very quickly touch on the chores piece, because the chores piece fits in, if we're co-creating a structure, there's an acronym I created, and you can get this on a free download. We'll show the link at the end. There's a free download on my website, which will have this all listed out. But I have an acronym called FIRM-C for the 5 different things you want to make sure are in your structure and schedule. Focus time number 1. So Helen, right now we're on this call and you don't want interruptions or excessive noise and distraction, right? So your focus time are the first things to put in your calendar and try to protect. And I tell my clients that I coach and the regular time, if you can get one 90-minute chunk in the morning, if you can get a second 90-minute chunk in the afternoon, you are winning. You are absolutely winning in terms of focus time. Don't expect any more than that. If you get more than that, that's out of the park. So, and right now at home in this environment, if you can get one 90-minute chunk in, that's a real success. So that's the focus time. There's interactive, engaged time. Then there's rest. Our sleep and rest is really important. Take advantage of being at home and having a bed close by, and take a proper nap in the afternoon. If you're feeling emotionally exhausted or you haven't slept well, go get that 20-minute nap. And as for movement, there's got to be movement in your day. I recommend 30 minutes of cardio and then strength and balance and on top of that. And then C is for chores, because this stuff needs to get done. And there's more pressure on your home now with everybody in it than there is when everybody's out at school making a mess there. And so, or in their office. So there's more pressure on the system. So you need more of that team effort to restore order at the end of every day. So yeah, so I just wanted to touch on where chores fit in, because it's sometimes a thing we think just has to happen without devoting time and honor and ritual to it. And the more we can embrace it as an act of self-care and care of that home team, the less painful it is. And then I wanted to definitely touch on the point of, there's no easy reality. You could be at home and the kids could be distracting, or you could be like me. I'm someone who, my kids will actually live with their dad, and I am at home alone. And normally that's fine for me. I work from home alone all the time, but I get out and I interact with tons of people. My daughter will join me and say, are we going for a walk? Are we going for a talk, Mom? Like what's going on? Because I'll always meet neighbors and have really great conversation. But with that not happening, I sensed very quickly that from a mental health perspective, I wasn't going to be as well. I needed some eyeballs coming back to me. So I adopted 2 cats on March 29th. And if they're not lifesavers for me, and they're really cute. Follow me on Instagram and you'll see pictures of the golden boys. They're like accessories. They're fabulous. Anyway, so yes, being on your own, you need to be intentional around making sure you've got rich connection with people who really matter in your life. So figure out who those people are. Marcus Buckingham is a fabulous coach. He talks about your strong life team, and knowing who those people are, that if you're feeling low, you can get in touch with them. So knowing who those people are before you get low, and honestly, having a speed dial list so that you can reach out, or the Facebook group set up so that you can do a quick hit when you need to and say, I need someone to call me. I need to speak with somebody, have somebody reach out. So
yeah, that's so helpful. And I do want to open it up to others to make sure that they have a chance to ask questions. It looks like Claire might have frozen there. Hopefully not. Hopefully we didn't lose her. And does anyone else have any questions? Claire, are you there? Oops. I feel like we lost her. Nicole, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay,
I
yeah.
actually might have had a question that I'm sure a lot of you could help me answer, just because I think next week is Mental Wellness Week, I believe. So the question, just building off of what Claire was talking about, was for a lot of companies, it seems that the managers and leaders have to take care of their employees, but how do leaders take care of their own mental wellness? Like, what would you recommend?
Yeah, no, that's great. And I don't know what happened. We lost Claire, but we can continue because this is really, there's a wealth of knowledge on here as well with Lee. And, it's interesting because the last session we had, as you know, Nicole, the last session in this series was mindfulness, but also self-care and compassion for leaders. And then how do we do that for ourselves and also then support employees? And it's great that you remind me of Mental Health Wellness Week. I'm supposed to be speaking on someone else's, and it is so important. So sorry, Claire, we lost you for a second, but
Yeah, and it seems like my internet dropped, which is, I
you know
think.
what? It's happening. There was a big power failure in our house last week, and the whole street was dark. And ours, thankfully, we bought a generator because we've had floods in our basement. Long story. I'm not going to take up the time now, but we put that back up in, and I think it's
Yeah.
just so much usage,
Yeah.
overusage, and everything. So Nicole, did you want to maybe ask Claire your question? We were just talking about how. I'll let you pop out, just make sure I have it right. But the whole, you touched on like compassion for ourselves, like self-compassion, self-care. And as leaders, I think this is something that a lot of people are overlooking right now as far as in organizations, like the leaders aren't taking care of themselves. They need to, like with mental health and wellness and self-care, and many of us here, I know a couple of you have been through challenging times before, and myself, and how to learn to do that. And Nicole, do you want to just ask it one more time and hop out? It's along that line, but I want to make sure I got it right. So
Yeah, it was essentially the same thing, just because I find that a lot of leaders, there's a lot of resources for them to take care of their own workers and to be there and be cautious of, especially since we're all working from home. But I want to know how leaders could be more mindful for taking care of their own well-being, especially mental wellness.
Oh my gosh, you touch on something huge because, and I've talked to a lot of leaders like, oh, I was really good at taking care of my people, but I realized I wasn't. And it's a massive mindset shift. And that's where the coaching piece often comes in. That's where I find most success is one-on-one, figuring out what the blocks are. There's usually some kind of belief that me doing for others is more important than me doing for myself. But if you understand, and my whole business is really around cultivating sustainable performance. And to be sustainable, we have to make sure that we have the ability to keep giving. Because if we burn out, as thousands and thousands of people do in North America because of overwork and overcommitment and this almost a societal incubation towards drive and hustle and this kind of relentless effort, then we don't see really good examples of, oh, I see a leader who's actually, I think one example is Ariana Huffington. After falling and cutting her cheek open from exhaustion, she finally went, oh, I need to now prioritize this. So it often takes a catastrophe for leaders to actually get a wake-up call. And my big drive is to give the wake-up call and create some kind of enlightenment beforehand that makes the connection to sustainable performance is making sure that you can continue to show up with energy and drive, and you know what you need as a human animal to be able to do that. And so I spend a lot of time in the course I put together on nurturing your mind, nourishing your body, so that you're not running on empty and have nothing, not only for yourself, but then to have the patience to nurture their relationships. Because one of the things I keep hearing about now too is that you'll hear people being testy or passive control, and tensions coming out because relationships aren't being well managed because we're under stress. And so we need, if you think, one real tip to that helps people is to think of themselves as 3 years old. Okay, and if you think you're taking your 3-year-old self on a journey through your day, how kind can you be to that person versus this grown-up person who should have it together, right? The 3-year-old, you know, they're doing the best. You know, they might be hungry, they might be tired, they might need to run around and shake their sillies out. What does your 3-year-old need? And to tune into that, to stop and tune in. I always say tune in before you lean in. And so if you can remember to do that in your day, even give yourself reminders every couple of hours, tune in. How are you? How are you, little one? How are we doing today? And what do you need to take care of yourself? Does that help?
Yeah, that helped a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was really great. I think that pause, and I was going to ask you, and I know you want to probably continue with some of your, slides and everything, but the pause is so important. Like for me, just taking a few deep breaths to kind of, because I find myself getting short too. Like I might have had times where I'm losing it and it's like, wait, that's not the Helen, that is everybody knows and loves. And, we're under a little bit of tension sometimes. So it's like, get the time to pause, because right now for me, that creating some space for creativity, for being able to find the patience to deal with everything that's happening right now, and to bring myself back to that, grounded space. So those rituals and habits, and I'm sure you're going to talk a little bit about that. And when we talk about productivity, it's like, to me, it's all about, efficiency and joy, though. Still, like, you want to have fun and be able to feel like you're creating things and actually getting crap done. I was going to say something else, but so I don't know if there's any other questions, or if you want to continue, Claire, if you had a few more things you wanted to run through and slide
I
share.
do. Yeah. I do have
we
more.
Still have
to share.
About, I had booked it till 1, but we can go over if people want to stay on. It depends on if you have to go, but we still have about 22 minutes. So if you want to dive back in and, continue, because this is really great. I think, the whole point is to try to share and learn from each other as well. So
yeah, so I'm happy to do that. And I just want to say that I always look at the rich conversation that comes out of being with a group to be often the most poignant moments can come out of that. So it spurred Nicole to a question, which I love. And the answer, I'm sure, is useful for more than just Nicole. So I adore that. I was on a call with 23 leaders yesterday, and it was a 90-minute session, and it was full. I stopped all the way through and was asking, what do you think about this? What do you think? So then everybody feels part of what we're talking about. And if there's an individual concern, then we can get to it. So yeah. I love it. And so that said, if we don't get to the very last slide, it's okay, because what we got through is really
exactly useful. And I also wanted to just say, I'm sorry about your loss. We have been hearing of others too, and that's the other thing we have to, as leaders, be mindful of, that people are going through these things. We did have a colleague, one of my clients, I just heard a colleague had lost her mother-in-law, and I can't even see my mom. Luckily, knock on wood, her home is good. It's like there's those other things that people are dealing with as well. So thoughts with you on that, because
thank you. And you know what, though, that's the case all the time, but only now do we have an environment in which we can talk about it.
Yeah.
So I want leaders to remember that this kind of compassion and this kind of question about what's the capacity of my team today, what's each person going through, home team and then work team, so that we don't make assumptions about, well, I expected you to be on time and deliver and show up. And so I'm not the productivity coach that stick a fork in my eye and run faster on the treadmill. I'm someone who wants people to be able to have moments of exhale through their day, so they're they're
Mhm.
able to sustain that energy and talent and continue giving, because it's maybe completely selfish. In the giving is in the receiving. And that's where the fulfilling lives come from. And I firmly believe we all deserve a fulfilling life. And so stepping into this mindset of, I'm going to take care of myself so I can keep giving. So because I deserve that fulfillment, boom. That's
It's so true. And work, we talked about this. Work is part of life. It's life first, right? Work is a part of it. And when I started Life Works Well, that's where the well is all about wellness and health, and it's all together, right? And this is our whole self, and that's why this whole series, like, who talks about love, leadership, layoffs, and love? Helen Patterson. No, but it's like we need to. It's okay to have that
there's an
emotional
opening.
intelligence. Yeah, and
There's
that's
an
what I'm
opening
hopeful.
in conversation, I think, which we're well positioned to jump into and go, I got a crack. Let me work with this, and let's open some leadership thinking to embrace this compassion and carry it forward through.
Yeah, we're hoping. So continue.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll let you.
All right. So we talked about the 4 C's, and the one question I want you to have for your team is, how can we support each other? With your teenagers, with your middle school kids, with everyone, how can we work as a team? What can we do? Because we're all in this together and we want to succeed as the Patterson family team. What can we do? What does that look like? And coming together as a family and having those conversations to be curious and figure out what that looks like is, I think, going to leave you in a really rich place. So now I'll move into leadership and how you can better lead your work team. And there are 3 big areas. There's a lot more in my 90-minute session yesterday. I went into a few more areas as well in some depth, but these are 3 that really stand out for me as key questions that leaders want to answer and be intentional about. And number 1 question is motivation. And I think that was your question, Deborah, is how do I stay motivated? And I remember back in the 90s, I worked for a telecom challenger, and economically things were not going well for that company. And I remember going to work one day back on the TTC when people read newspapers, big newspaper in front, and I could see the headline, and the headline was "Axe Poised Over My Company." And I thought, oh, should I bother continuing going this direction, or should I just get off the train the next station, hop on, and go home? It was that kind of environment, and from a media perspective, was very demotivating. And then I went to my office and I sat in a room with 7 of my colleagues and my director at the time. And he basically opened the meeting and then said, it's not my job to motivate you. And I still remember me sinking even further after the newspaper headline and then experiencing that. And it's always been a question for me that I love to understand leadership perspective on. I've netted out that it's a dual responsibility, that leaders have a role and an opportunity to not carry the whole load, but be people that can connect to an attitude of hope, number 1. And leaders who can connect the dots to purpose. And so there were 2 roles there, which there are more roles, with task clarity and autonomy and all kinds of things. But right now, hope and purpose and the connection to both of those things are things that as leaders, I'd encourage you to think about. What role are you taking? And what are you able to draw from in your life and challenges that you've experienced before that you could apply to this situation to cultivate that sense of motivation in your people? Compassion, we talked a lot about already, so I won't go into that further. But other than to say, actually, one thing I do want to share. You can look at, we've got all innate sort of levels of natural compassionate thinking, and some of us have it and some of us really, 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 really don't. And the great thing is that it is something that you can cultivate and grow more of. And one way to do it that's scientifically backed is to do meditations on compassion. And what that means is actually thinking and visualizing someone that you care about, someone that's in a close circle to you, eliminating the suffering that they might be going through, and to just stay in that place for a period of time, and to do that repeatedly over a few days. What they found is the science for people that had meditated in a compassionate state, several weeks later, they tested them in a behavioral, what would you do in this situation? And they found that people had been in meditation, their brains had changed in this particular part of the brain where empathy and compassion lives, and they took more compassionate action. So don't give up if you're feeling like, I just don't get it when somebody else is sad. I don't know how to engage with that. There's a way to cultivate and grow that, and this might be a really interesting time for you to explore that. And then communication, boy, it looks different now. It feels different now. All the regular best practices applied of, choosing the right format, the more sensitive it is, the more complicated it is, the more information you need when you're communicating. You need some expression, you need good words, you need a lot of thought and intent around it. But now we've got this element of video communication as well, which is more exhausting than regular communication. Actually, me looking at the camera right now, rather than looking at the pictures of you all down on my computer, is somewhat less exhausting because I'm just able to project what I want to that. But if I'm looking at all of the faces and perceiving all of your reactions and processing all of that, there's an incredible neural load in my brain. And I can tell you, from speaking to hundreds of people in an audience to coaching one-on-one, these Zoom group calls are more exhausting than any of that. So to pay attention to a couple of things. Number one, how much you participate in that in a day, and when you need to take yourself off video to, number one, feel like you cannot have to look at the screen so intently and all of the facial expressions, but you can also not being watched so closely. We're not used to being watched so intently. So allowing yourself to do that is one thing. The other thing I want you to think of as leaders and communicators is, are you making it easier on your audience to connect with you? Is your lighting good? Is your sound good? Because any of those things that can diminish the other person's experience can be fatiguing for them, to a downright irritant, to stress causing, to wanting to just shut you off. So thinking about what you're putting out and broadcasting in terms of communicating in this time is really, really powerful. So I'm going to stop again there and just check in if anybody's got a question around motivation, compassion, and communication. Lee.
Hi, Claire. Thank you so much for all of this information. It's been fabulous. And to Helen, I'm so thrilled to see you moving along with your business, and it's fabulous. I more want to share a comment, and it's around vulnerability, and especially with men. So my husband shared a story earlier this week that his recently new boss had shared to him that, like, very suddenly and abruptly he was taking a few days off, and he said it was because he had family issues. So like Rob's like, oh my gosh, I hope his parents are okay, and wondering what was going on there. And then as it turned out, about a day later, the owner of the company that my husband works for sent a message saying that his boss was going to take a bit of time off to deal with some personal issues. And then he DM'd Rob and asked if he could speak to him. And so he did. And it turned out that his boss was experiencing a severe anxiety, and it's something that he's experienced before. And so he decided to take some time off. And then immediately, within a few minutes, his immediate boss called and just said, like, shared kind of what was going on with him and stuff. And him and Rob had this really, I don't know, for lack of a better word, intimate conversation about what his boss was going through. And what was lovely was that, my husband knows that I experience anxiety, and I've lived with this as a leader for my adult life. So he already kind of understood it, even though he's never really gone through it, which was great. And so he was very supportive to my boss or to his boss. And he sent him some food delivery from Real Foods for Real Kids, which I thought was just an incredible gesture, and his boss really appreciated it. So I guess I just was telling this story because, you know, going back to the message that, or the question that Nicole shared about, you know, who takes care of the leaders. And, you know, I really think that that's an important thing that we need to be thinking about, and an area that we need to focus on more. So just wanted to share that story, and thank you to all of you for this great conversation around our healthy well-being around work.
You raise a great point, Lee, because I think traditionally, especially, we don't expect expressions of emotion from men. We don't, I mean, it's just not normally witnessed. And so, and there's nobody immune from this. So I'm hoping that this is an opportunity too for more of that expression and more real conversation. Yeah, and that especially more male leaders step into that bravely. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That is, I mean, and I think this is the thing is, you know, with some of my clients, they are so focused on the business and what's next. And, you know, our role and in the work I do, primarily HR consulting, is, you know, I need to remind them, hey, are you taking those pauses? Are you taking your breaks? Because you're not good to us as a leader if you're, you know, if you're going to burn out. Or, and I love what you said earlier about don't wait for catastrophe, right? So in one of the sessions I did, I was talking about the resilience and versus like clarity versus like catastrophic response, right? Like, how do you make decisions? How do you do that? And, you know, I think that this is a really opportune time again to bring all of this. And we didn't really talk about the trust piece yet, but I think this is part of it, is trusting, you know, that it's okay to then, we now have a little bit of an opportunity to have that dialogue where we may not have been as comfortable before. Like, you need to take care of yourself. Like, you know, reminders, if you're lucky as an organization to have EAP or, you know, employee family and assistance programs, EFAP, they call them both. But, you know, right away with one of them, like, we need to remind everybody, if we're going to use it, now's the time, because it's so underutilized. You know, one of the clients I have, it's called Resilience, which is amazing. It's a program. I'm like, is anyone using it? Is anyone looking at it? Like, this is a great time. So any other questions? I noticed June joined us later, so that's great. Hi, does anyone else want to say anything or comment or have a question for Claire?
Well, hi Helen. I just have a couple of comments, and I do apologize for joining late. Just another urgent matter that I know we've all been struggling to deal with these days. But on the video, Claire's comments around the video conferences, there is something that I was reading about that's called Zoom fatigue. So obviously it's a new concept that I think a lot of people are starting to struggle with, and it, you know, sort of encompasses everything that Claire was talking about in terms of the extra effort and energy that you have to spend on these Zoom calls now, but also because of the lack of some of the visual cues that are missing. You know, when you're meeting with somebody face to face, they see your entire body language, right? It's not just about your facial reactions, but it's about, you know, the way that you're sitting, or, you know, some of the movements that you might be making, you know, even the direction where your feet are pointed. It's all kinds of little subtle subconscious movements that we make with our body that demonstrate, you know, our understanding through the conversation. And all of those cues are missing now. And so, so we try subconsciously to make up for that. And so we put this extra effort into, you know, our facial expressions or our tone of voice or things like that through video conferencing. And it is exhausting, and we don't realize that this is happening. So a lot of people are starting to experience this Zoom fatigue at the end of the day after a long day of video calls. So the recommendation in the article that I was reading is to, you know, have days where you're video conference free. And you just say, you know what, I know that the face-to-face interaction is really important, I would say the majority of the time, but you do also have to take some time out to say, no, I'm not going to be on video, I'm not going to be available by video today. And to sort of set those boundaries, and to even, you know, be an example or a role model for others, so that they don't also feel that they always have to be available for video conferences. And then the other comment that I was going to make is around the point about compassion. And what I've found is helpful in my coaching of leaders is when I ask them to take a moment and just step into the other person's shoes. And I know, it seems so cliche, like, walk a mile in their shoes, but it really does work if they think about what it's like. I work with a lot of colleagues who don't have small children at home, who are not worrying about homeschooling while they're, managing their full-time workloads, and not worrying about, feeding a family and how they're going to get their groceries and things like that. So if they just take a moment and step into the other person's shoes, that'll lead to empathy. And I've always found that empathy is the foundation for building compassion.
That was great. Thank you. I think we all are very much on the same level of thinking on that, June, and some great points. It's just funny you say about the Zoom fatigue, because I was just writing about it and also practicing some live videos and some things I was going to be working on. And the first question I said was, are you experiencing Zoom fatigue? Because I get drained, and me, I'm quite gregarious. I'm quite an extrovert, but I find I'm having meetings with like our COO and others. I'm like, let's just hop on the phone, and because we just, we're experiencing that, and lots of leaders with their board, they're having board meetings like for hours on Zoom, and they're having like these long 2-hour Zoom calls, and so you do have to go in and out. So thank you for sharing that with us, and I'll let Claire comment on that as well.
Yeah, thanks. So there were two things in there. I know you talked about trust, Helen, that we hadn't talked about that to a great degree, and I think there's 2 points around trust. Number one is, it's still about doing what you say you're going to do and setting up expectations and following through. That's probably number one in terms of establishing trust. But then showing up and being as human as you can be, so that you're not perfect. And so perfection isn't an expectation. And so that you invite, then you make it a safe psychological space to be able to talk from a human point of view. And I saw that on my call with the company this week, where an employee felt totally empowered and entitled to share an opinion with the leader. And there was a fine example of trust, and it's several ways. It's up and down, and it's also sideways. So understanding where trust needs to be and being more intentional about it. And then just one point, because we're almost done the hour, one point about Zoom. I think it's very hard when you're a team player and in meetings with people to say, I'm not doing a Zoom day. So my twist on that is to say, what if at the beginning we commit to being on Zoom for 5 minutes and letting everybody see each other and have the extroverts feed in off that energy that we're so looking for. Anybody who wants to stay on can be video on. Anybody who wants to can be video off. But when we have to have a complicated or sensitive discussion and we want to have that, then we can request video when it's going to add value to the conversation and the experience of what we're trying to accomplish. That to me seems like a useful, practical compromise that respects the introversion, extroversion preferences, but also serves the quality of the communication. So just a thought on that. Let me think. I just want to leave you from a leadership perspective with, the question at home team is, what can we do? What can we do to support each other and be effective as a team? As a leader, for now and for always, I want you to have this question on the tip of your tongue when you see one of your team members perhaps struggling or not delivering, whatever might be happening. I want you to ask them, what do you need to succeed? If they're in a hole, it's not throwing them a rope and pulling them out and you're doing all that heavy lifting. It's offering them a ladder. And what does the ladder look like so they can climb out and be back to themselves, if you will. So that was the big, last, powerful question. I just wanted to let you know that, like I've mentioned some tips, the firm C and so on. There's a page on my website where you can get that for free. And I'm doing these kinds of conversations, but with invited guests. And Lee, we spoke last week, and I had Stu Saunders, who's leads a community of student leaders. Had him on a Monday, and lots of different professional speakers I'm having come over the next Mondays at noon through the end of May. And I think I've got 2 people signed up for June. So there's a lot of great conversations to look forward to. And then the last thing is, for anybody that you think would benefit from going deeper, I've also created a self-study program, which is 20 videos, and it's about 45 minutes of material to read through, but the richness isn't just the material, the facts, it's the coaching questions that are embedded in, to let people kind of absorb all of these different topics, but turn them into what will work for them. So I just wanted to share that with you too, as a resource that you can point to people. It's the first course like this that I've ever created, and I'm really, really proud of it and put a lot into it. So I'm hoping it will connect with people, and like I said at the beginning, make this experience so good that they can keep doing it and it be the key to their really fulfilling life. So that was the content that I prepared. I am happy to stay on for a few more minutes as well, if there are questions, but those are the key things I wanted to leave you all with.
That's fantastic. I think that I just wanted to say, this has been very, very helpful, and the idea of having more of a dialogue is really important to me. I'm just going to also thank you, first of all, for your time. We can stay on, as I said, for a couple more questions, or I will be sending out the recording. And to those who registered, as well as anyone who registered for the series, and share widely, as long as you're okay with that. Yeah. And give your links to your website for those who want to check out the course, and you're on Facebook. Where else can people reach you? I think Facebook, LinkedIn, anywhere else?
Yeah, I'm lucky with my name. There's really no other Clare Kumar. There's one in South America with an I who does some science work. So you put Clare Kumar in, everything to find me will come up. And my website's clarekumar.com. So there's all kinds of links there. Yeah,
that's great. So I really appreciate it. I'm just going to share my screen real quick. I'll try. I'm always having these little, difficulties. But I just, sorry, I don't know what you can see there. Can you see my screen?
Just see you, beautiful you right now.
Oh, this always happens. You know what? Let me just get out of there then. It's not going to matter. I'm just going to close out. One of the things I usually like to end on a quote as well, but I think that I want to bring back again the love piece. And, what does love have to do with it? I think that it's everything. And many people are afraid to talk about that. I mean, HR with heart is really about human relations as opposed to human resources. And I think that this is such a great opportunity we have to be having these conversations, to be authentic, to be vulnerable. To Lee's point, there is such an opportunity to bring this humanity and the human first back into the workplace and into the world, really. We're seeing so many wonderful stories about people stepping up, fundraising, picking up, doing food drives in their neighborhoods. Like, I love it. And I just really hope that we will use this as a community, as the world, to continue this going forward. If anyone has any other questions, otherwise, I think we're just going to call it a day. Is anybody wanting to ask anything else? Okay, well, you will now know where to reach us both. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and continue to keep in touch. And again, Claire, thank you. That was so helpful. And I definitely want to check out your course, because as much as I feel like I have it together sometimes, we can always, improve on our strategies and plans, and just, create that life we want and that joy in it to be able to get through this time and into the future. So thanks again, and everyone have a good day. I'm gonna sign off now.
My pleasure. Thanks for
Thanks
having
for
me.
joining.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Nice to see you all.
Bye.
Thanks, Claire.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.